2, 1, go.
Hello and welcome to Writer Mother Monster. I'm your host, Lara Ehrlich, and tonight's guest is Leslie Lehr. Before I introduce Leslie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And as always, if you enjoyed the episode and Writer Mother Monster, please consider becoming a patron or patroness to help me keep this podcast going. And now I'm pleased to introduce Leslie. Leslie Lehr's new memoir, A Boob's Life, How America's Obsession Shaped Me and You, was in People Magazine's Best New Books, a must-read for Glamour Magazine and Good Morning America, and in Entertainment Tonight's shortlist of books for Women's History Month. Salma Hayek is producing a comedy series based on A Boob's Life for HBO Max, and Leslie's novels include What a Mother Knows, Wife Goes On, 66 Laps, and Welcome to Club Mom. Her essays can be found in the New York Times Modern Love column, the Mommy Wars anthology, and Ariana Huffington's On Becoming Fearless. A breast cancer survivor, Leslie works with Stand Up to Cancer. She has 2 daughters, ages 29 and 32, and she describes writer motherhood as true identity theft. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk to you and particularly excited to talk about boobs.
Yeah.
So let's start there. I do want to get to identity theft, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start with boobs. So,
okay.
Why boobs?
Well, why not boobs? I mean, I think boobs are something that shapes our lives in the way we don't even know. Every morning we get up and we have to do something with them. Right? We have to decide, no matter what size they are, hike them up or put them down or wear a bra or not wear a bra. In our whole lives, we go through wanting boobs to be like our moms, wanting bras, wanting bigger boobs, littler boobs to be, like all the people on TV, and then using our boobs, and then the boobs go away, and 300,000 people a year get breast implants, and about the same number then get breast cancer. And it's this amazing organ that, as you know, as a mom, it literally turns blood into milk. That makes it an organ, and yet there's no medical specialty for it. We have to go to different doctors for different things. Also, humans, we are the only species of mammal who have boobs our entire life, not just when we're using them. And yet we get judged by them all the time, and there's only some that are pretty, and it's just a whole world. So for me, boobs were just... Well, when we get to reading the beginning of my book, I'll explain exactly why I had to write this book, because it's like hiding in plain sight. Boobs, well, it's not hiding in plain sight. I mean, men look at boobs within 200 milliseconds of us walking in a room. It's the most obvious way of, being a woman. Even people who are transitioning sexually, their boobs is generally the first thing they get or get rid of. So boobs are a big deal. That's why.
Even if they're small, they're a big deal.
Absolutely. They're part of our identity, for sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. I want to start with the emotion of boobs and work our way to the function and motherhood and all of the, but at least for me growing up, there's a lot of emotion around it, right? Shame and, like you said, the desire to transition to womanhood, and that comes with your body changing, but there's also shame bound up in there. And as you mentioned, women are judged by their breasts or lack thereof. So talk a little bit about the emotion of breasts.
Well, I think we judge ourselves really harshly a lot by the size and shape of our breasts, and we judge other women. If someone has boobs that are too big, we'll think, oh, she's a slut. And, we think smart people are supposed to be kind of flat-chested. And if you have a boob job, it makes you cheap, except for, everyone wants you to have perfect boobs. And the perfect boob is the prepubescent, round, plump, firm thing before we have children. And then, all the mothers out there, we know what happens after that. And it's just, the emotions, I think, really are a part of what makes women women, and it's part of the package of women's beauty. So of course there's emotions, and because we live here, we have to live here, we want to feel beautiful, and so of course it has a lot to do with how we feel about ourselves and our body. And I talk a lot about body positivity, and I think, oh, we're so modern with Time's Up and Me Too and everything, and yet girls today, with social media, teenager depression, I mean, it's a huge deal, airbrushing our bodies to look a certain way, comparing how we look to other people, and being judged by that, and judging ourselves and others. So I'm of the philosophy, love your boobs. You can do whatever you want with them, but it's your body. You got to live in this world. But it's just really, I think you can't have breasts without having no emotion about them. And in fact, if you say you don't care about boobs, and I know people who are like this, I think you're in denial, because the rest of the world cares. Everything you look at has boobs. So it's like saying you don't care about your arm, because it is a body part,
Mm-hmm. I wonder if people mean that they don't think about them, right? Like that they don't consciously consider their breasts. It's just sort of like there, and it's,
Yeah, I think consciously is the key word there, because unconsciously you're always dealing with the breasts. As we saw, every day we wake up, are we going to wear a bra or not? What kind of styles can we wear? And it's really about if it's important enough to spend our time thinking about, because the culture does that enough for us. I mean, part of my book, I go through all this, stuff that I went through, but tracing the advertising and the imagery we see in movies and television, and even song lyrics and novels and stories, the way we hear and are taught about breasts, it's part of what makes us have this identity that makes us not want to talk about it. I think they're not important, because they are a certain way. And certainly if all bodies looked alike, we'd have, a lot more equal representation, except for what boobs do as a function also change our roles, obviously at home, especially during COVID, and after, and at work. And, it has a huge effect on our life, whether we think it matters or not, or whether we think we spend time on it. So I think consciously is a really smart word to use.
Yeah, let's talk about the function a little bit. So something that surprised me about motherhood was how much I learned about my boobs. And I just didn't know. I mean, obviously we know that they produce milk, but I did not know that there were multiple streams.
Oh, all the little parts, yeah.
Yeah, and I still don't really know some of the science behind all of that. You mentioned they turn blood into milk, and I want to know more about that, because I'm like, ooh, is that literal? Because surely that must be maybe that's the case. I actually don't know.
Well, it's actually not milk. I think we call it milk because it's this white liquid, but it is, and this is the coolest thing in the world, but it's essentially customized immunity boosting liquid for the child that comes out of your body. I mean, so to have another woman's milk is great, because you're also going to get her antibodies or whatever. To get cow's milk or formula with all those boosters, that's fine. But it was made by our bodies to be the ideal nutrition for the offspring that comes out of our bodies. So, I think then when you get to breastfeeding, it's like, clearly the doctors believe that breastfeeding is the healthiest thing. And yet this is such a double-edged coin, because on one hand, breastfeeding is not supported either in the workplace or in many hospitals, or when we have trouble with it, and on the other hand, and even laws, it's legal to breastfeed now in all 50 states, but you show a nipple, you get arrested for public indecency. On the other hand, if you can't breastfeed, if you're in a position, especially women of color, women of other needs, women who are disabled, or just simply can't physically breastfeed, or they can't leave work to breastfeed, or there's no time to breastfeed, there's such shame from other women of, you're not doing the right thing for your baby. And man, that is just so unfair. So I think we all need to just kind of lighten up. And yeah, it's great if we had more support for breastfeeding, but if you can't do it, a lot of women have a lot of trouble breastfeeding. I remember my first child, I got really sick and couldn't breastfeed for long. And so, but I wanted to, I felt like that's what being a mom was. So I actually rented, back then it was these big Medela machines. It looked like a freaking Iron Man. It was this big thing where I used to pedal, and But I was doing that so much to gather milk so I could take medicine that would go through my body to my baby, that I was just depleting my body of resources and I wasn't getting better. And so I had to stop breastfeeding and put her on formula. Of course, my mom wanted to give her ice cream right away. So then she's not going to want anything healthy. But then I just felt horrible, like I wasn't a good mom. And exponentially, at first there's colostrum and different kinds of milk that are, after a certain amount of weeks, it's exponentially less helpful. But it's still helpful. My second daughter, man, she was just a hungry girl. And, I would get everybody, I don't want to, get gross out there. I mean, it shouldn't be gross, but all of our, sometimes you can get infections or duct stuff or nipple issues. And yeah, it hurts to have the little thing getting teeth and gnawing at you. But it is also this blissful feeling when your milk comes down, unless you're like in a store and someone says mom and, your shirt's wet. But she wanted to nurse as long as she could. And had no problem with it. And then it's like, how do you stop? Are you a bad mom for not wanting to do it anymore? And, there's a big Time magazine cover years ago, like, are you mom enough? And it had a picture of a woman with like a toddler standing on a high chair nursing her. So there's a whole lot of judgment around it. And I'd like to stop that too.
Yeah, no, there's so much there in what you just so eloquently said. I remember the classes for breastfeeding at the hospital where they say it's the most natural thing, and so you expect it then to be easy, because if it's natural, it must be easy.
Natural means easy, right?
Right, yes, and there's no support, or there is support, you just don't know that it exists yet or that you'll need it for this thing that's supposed to be natural. So when it's painful and it's bloody and blistering, you're like, God, I'm doing it wrong, I'm a failure. Yeah,
you're a bad mom, you can't do this, your body's not doing it.
Yeah,
you want to. And yeah, it's horrible. I think women I would like to say we're our own worst enemies, but I think the culture at large moves that on a little bit. So I really respect women who can try it. And now these women, and there's a lot of TV shows that are funny. You see movie stars with like two little, reportable things on her. It's so exhausting, not only to breastfeed, but to deplete yourself of all those minerals and whatever. And the women who go to work and do that, it's like they're doing two freaking jobs. I mean, that's a lot. And having it all doing it all, you're not, you got nothing left. It's really a tricky situation to try and work and be a mom. And, if men could do it, they'd like be on a throne and become a baby, and it would be great.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a question about a room, like a nursing room at work, right? You'd have like
that would be their work too. They would get paid to do that,
yeah.
Which is a whole other issue. But I really think that women at home should get Social Security. It's like women are such a disadvantage to be home and take care of the kids when it's most convenient for that. And because of that convenience, they make less money because they have more flexible jobs. And then men make money, then you depend on the men, and then you end up trying to go back to work, and where do you fit in? How much money can you make? So, which brings us all to childcare and COVID. It's like, it's just a real tricky business. So for me, it all starts with the breast and breastfeeding, and these breasts of ours can provide and nurture life, and then they can kill us. So it's just, boobs.
Yeah, the full cycle of life and death. And we'll come back to that in a second. We have a question from Tom Harris, though, who actually was commiserating with us. He says that his wife's lactation consultant was a monster and made his wife cry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you know what? Now they have, when I was doing the book, thanks, Tom, I was like doing statistics of how many people are out there for support and stuff. But I remember, the La Leche League, who was the original one, they were like, you have to do it this way, and it's really intimidating,
Yes, I had a nurse make me cry. I mean, not a purpose. I got home and you're all like hormonal and everything, and you go home and you're like, I don't remember what she told me to do, and like it's not working, and it's like they're supposed to make a sandwich, but the baby's mouth is too small for the sandwich. But
and baby brain, it's like it's not like something to make fun of. Seriously, you just produced an entire human being. Of course you have chemicals going on, and you're not thinking of everything, and it's really hard. And I just feel if someone makes you cry, you should just get rid of that person. That's just wrong,
Exactly.
Every part of motherhood is a challenge, and to have a guy like Tom who is caring enough about his wife to say, this isn't fair. I mean, be proactive, and it's okay to say, hey, we need to, this is not working out,
Exactly.
But then it's hard to find someone who can help you. I mean, I do remember like different ways to try and get the baby to latch on. And, and when you're full and your boob is really hard, the baby can't even get a grip around your nipple. There's the foothold, and women who have twins, oh my God. So
I know.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I think there needs to be a lot more support around it and a lot less judgment around. Most women have trouble with it,
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And Tom has a question which takes us sort of away from the mothering, but maybe in some senses. Well, anyway, we'll get to
sex.
So Tom says, we'll go from mothering to sex, but I think they're connected. So Tom says, can you tell me why I derive such comfort from spooning and holding onto my wife's breast? It's always amazed me how much safe harbor is transmitted through that gesture. It doesn't feel sexual, it feels essential. So I guess we're talking too about finding comfort in breasts, right? In a relationship.
Right. Well, I think that because of where breasts are located on the body, in front of the heart, in the middle of your arms where we embrace things. I mean, everyone hugs people with our chests. That's the warm love area. And so it makes complete sense. And when he talks about spooning, he's not actually seeing the front of her, right? So that's not like the sexual vision of the nipple exposed, which is the intersection for me of the sacred and the sexy, and all of censorship is based on, is the nipple showing or not? Because so it allows them to have that warm feeling. And breasts are generally really warm too, because they're by the heart. And, I think it's just a lovely, comforting thing. So it's related to all of it. And of course, sex is how you get pregnant. So it's, to come full circle like that is just wonderful. And most men really like seeing their wives nurse just as much as they like holding their baby. There's just something that lets down those feel good chemicals about breasts, because breasts are incredible. They're just this incredible. They are an organ, but they do something wonderful, and they're beautiful. And then they spend our whole lives with us and give us a whole lot of other grief. So I'm glad that they can be comforting to a man and not just, sexual. I mean, that shows a lot of emotional maturity for a man as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about men who don't have emotional maturity. Right? Who see, because we do hear, as you said, about women being arrested in public for showing their nipples. And it's not just men, of course, who have that prejudice against breasts. But can we talk a little bit about the sexualization of breasts? And as you said, the change that occurs after motherhood, after you stop breastfeeding, when your breasts change shape and that impact maybe on a woman's feeling of her sexual worth.
That's definitely two sides, again, of the same subject, because I think there's a lot of personal shame and guilt about how our body morphs and that we no longer are sexually attracted, because our culture, and especially in America, which I discovered doing research for this book, really idealizes this young, firm breast. And it really was caused, the reason I wrote this book is because I realized that, well, a lot of reasons, but it was so incredibly ironic that my life completely parallels the rise of all the things in our culture that made America uniquely obsessed with breasts, and in a sexual way. I was born after World War II. During World War II, you might not know this, but there were childcare centers. Uncle Sam had subsidized childcare centers because the men were at war, and a lot of the women had to, buckle up and go to the factories and get to work. So when the men came back, even if they were maimed or half of them dead, in fact, more women were working forever than ever, but the women had to go back. So they closed all the childcare centers and all the pinup women and the new bras that had been invented, the colon bras, like on the cover of my book, to make women look, sexy and great, and make the men want to come home to their American bombshell women, right? I mean, they're shaped by bombshells, so that's where that expression came from.
I did not know that. Sorry. Yeah. Sidebar. That's really cool.
And so they came home. Women were encouraged to be in the bedrooms, and we've all seen Mad Men, right? TV went overnight into every home. For the first time in the late 50s and in the 60s, homes had TV. So there were women in your home. And advertisers know that a man will look at a woman's breast within 200 milliseconds of her entering the room. I mean, that's just a weird scientific fact. Because men are attracted for biology. They want to mate. It's an instinct we cannot fight. But the culture took advantage. So the advertisers, of course, would put women with large breasts on TV. So all the shows I grew up with, Green Acres and Hooterville and, Beverly Hillbillies, these women, the attractive ones, were young and had good boobs. That sold products. So advertising was big. At the same time, there was technology. Baby formula was invented. My mom was encouraged to use baby formula because it was better for your baby than breast milk. That was like D-class A and lower class. And, you were supposed to use the modern scientific stuff. And then there was this guy named Hugh Hefner, whose fiance slept with somebody else while they were engaged. And he had grown up Puritan. And so his parents, they came from that background of not hugging, no intimacy. And he married her, but he was pissed. And so he decided to take it out on everybody, create the Playboy man, right? And show women with beautiful breasts. And then this was a magazine that was actually in my dad's university, in the library for public. This is what women are supposed to look like, right? And so that became the Playboy man. So the combination of Playboy and modern swhite and advertising and the rise of television, created this perfect storm with big boobs being a big deal. Suddenly actresses, which would have been porn, but now actresses needed to be in Playboy to be beautiful, right? And the cartoons all had busty women. And then by 1982, there were the FDA, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons convinced the FDA that small breasts were a disease. I mean, and which opened up insurance to cover breast augmentation. I mean, it wasn't until recently that insurance would cover making breasts smaller, because who would want that? Who cares about women whose backs hurt and all that kind of stuff? Anyway, it created this culture of then women had to be topless in movies, and it was just all about the breast being beautiful and being shapely, and then breast implants and push-up bras and training bras were invented very shortly before I was a little girl. It's I was dying to get that stretchy little white bra. What were they training? I don't know. So it was just this incredible thing that made Americans and advertising and movies and everything in the world that we saw every day, breasts were supposed to be beautiful. And so then we use them, we get a man, right? And I did the same thing. You want to be sexy, show our cleavage, get a man. And then when I got pregnant, oh my God, I finally had the breasts I always wanted. I mean, I grew up in Ohio. It's cheerleaders, it's prom queens, and the curvy girls were really popular unless they were too curvy, and then they could attract the older boys, and then it was left. So it's this whole thing. But then I got huge for breastfeeding, and then milk's gone, empty sacks. That's kind of how it works. And so then even my mom called me deformed. I mean, it was they didn't look like regular breasts anymore. She was like, you should get a breast implants. And it's because she wanted me to be beautiful. She wanted me to feel good about myself. Our culture teaches us this. And so that on the other side, women feel bad about their breasts. And honestly, before COVID, it was still the most popular elective surgery was breast implants. And, like I said before, 300,000 women a year get elective. And I'm not talking about women being reconstructed after cancer, but the amount of women who spend so much trouble trying to get reconstructed and be perfect this way and that way, and feel bad about themselves. It's huge. So much time and money goes into remaking our breasts to look like they're young. And I'm not immune to this. I'm part of this culture, right? I grew up here, but it's a big deal, and it reflects poorly because you're not sexy unless you have a certain kind of thing. But then if you show the nipple, then it's about sex. It's that's too much. So that's where the whole censorship goes in, and free the nipple and gotopless.com. And, because women should be able to be like men and have these rights. And yet men are going to look at your breasts, and it's not always to a woman's advantage to be seen that way. So it's really,
no, there's a lot.
And Victoria's Secret, I mean, these are the women who make the most money, those models. I mean, they've fought over diamond bras, right? There were crowns for your breasts. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. When you look at the statistics, and in my book, it's I just go through all this funny stuff that I wrote about. Oh my God, and then this happened, and then I wore a wedding dress and my boobs almost popped out, and all this stuff. And then, I have girls and one wanted breast. It's like, what do you do? But then I put together these facts in between the chapters, because if you look at the history of what happened, it's just mind-boggling, the pattern of how things changed, and that breasts became really popular. They were really big and they were very valuable. I mean, even on Broadway, women who went topless made more money. On TV, Sofia Vergara was the highest paid woman for many years. And I know she's a great actor, but she has other assets as well. So anyway, I'll shut up.
No, it's true. I love that your book is both personal and very meticulously researched. Can you talk a little bit let's talk about writing the book. Let's get to the logistics of your craft. And
since we're mothers, who write, yeah, it's a tricky thing. Well, I'm not sure I would be a writer if I wasn't a mother, because I was in film production. I always wrote. Grew up in Ohio, but came out to for the movie business. I always wrote, but mostly to vent. And once I was kind of stuck at home, because my husband at the time and I were both in the movie business, we couldn't both be out of town all the time. I had the baby, and so of course I'm stuck at home. And so I thought, I'll just write more. But I was just so frustrated. My dad would call and say, well, what do you do all day? Because he expected me to be this big career woman. And I'm like, you don't want to know what I do all day, as a new mom. I was clueless. I think all moms are. We don't even know. In fact, I just started writing these little things to vent, because I was pissed and upset, and I didn't know who I was. And so I wrote these essays, and I combined it into this book called Welcome to Club Mom, The End of Life as You Know It. And I ended up selling it, but the publisher changed the subtitle. They thought that was too dark. And they changed the subtitle to The Adventure Begins. And so I ended up writing more. My first novel, 66 Laps, that won this big prize, was really about a young mom at home. Didn't know who she was. Thinks her husband's having an affair. All hell breaks loose. My second novel, Wife Goes On, was about a woman getting a divorce who, really it was all about, I don't want to get a divorce, but I want to be a good role model for my kids. And it's a comedy about women who are friends, but they're all moms, because it's just a whole other challenge and identity. My last book, What a Mother Knows, that wasn't my original title. And when I heard it, it was like, mothers know nothing. I know nothing. You think you know everything till your kids are teenagers, and you know nothing. It was really about, one of my daughters was crying at night, and I didn't know what to do. And I thought, what would I do? What's the worst that could happen? And what would I do if, it's this murder mystery, essentially, kind of a thriller of this mom who wakes up after an accident, and her daughter's missing, and she's being blamed for murder. And it's like, what would you do? Would you go to the ends of the earth? And still, my kids are grown, but there's still so much that the angst, and what I will do to help them and save them and keep them alive it's this visceral thing. And so it gave me, then I was afraid to go back to work, so I thought I'd never see them again, because the film production hours are long. There was not childcare, and that's another thing. Childcare, we don't have. It's not like we can choose really whether to have kids or not, because we have childcare. It's like we want to have kids, we've got to figure out how to make it work, and it's a big financial issue in our country. We're bottom of the list of all that leave. But for me, my writing was really a lot about complaining about being a mom and exploring who am I now that I'm a mom, and how can I do this? And this book was really no different. It was I had breast cancer, and I was after chemo, so 5 years later, and it was that one time my brain hadn't really come back, and I was desperate to write another book. And I was working with clients. I'm a writing consultant for Trudy's Writer Studio and for independently, and I'm very analytical. I'm very structure oriented, so I can help people. And that side was great, but that bubble up thing was not happening. And I just one night, and you'll see when I read, I just was so pissed about my breasts being ugly. I was like, do I fix them again? I don't know. And so I kind of wrote as a mom, the woman who's like, well, why am I obsessed with this? And I wanted to find out. And so I actually thought it would kind of be like a bunch of essays, but then it turned out to be this journey that after it was hard to sell, because it was this mix of memoir. And then I had to do the research too, because I had to see where I was in my life and what was really going on. to make me feel that way and get here. And so it was this unique combination. And then history went on and politics went on, and it became this, breast became this much bigger trigger point with me, even through Black Lives Matter and Time's Up and Me Too. It's like, it's really about equality for everyone, every size, shape, color of boobs, to have every opportunity in the world. So it did start like venting, like all of my writing, and with my worst concerns about being a mom. And you said before, it's an identity thing. It's like, I was shocked. I thought I knew who I was, and then you're a mom, and it's just a whole other thing, and it really doesn't go away. All you people with young kids out there, and you, Laura, with your lovely 5-year-old, it's like, you think you got 13 more years. You're committed for life. You're a mom, So, and it's hard to break away from that. And also our culture makes it like that's our whole worth, taking care, and it's too much responsibility. We need help, because otherwise we're going to get sick too, and then we go down, the whole ship goes down. So, and it all obviously connects, or I'd be able to shut up a lot sooner.
Yeah, no. No, it's so true. Yeah, and I loved your 3 words, identity theft. It was, what exactly? True identity theft. Yeah, because a lot of women on the show, myself included, have talked about that being one of the biggest fears for writer moms, or maybe for moms generally, is that fear that once you become a mom, that becomes your identity, right? As you said, or that's the expectation that you're groomed to have for yourself, is that you will become mom with a capital M, and that's it. And so how do you kind of balance all of the parts of yourself, or prioritize other parts of yourself?
Yeah, it's very tricky. And everyone has to kind of shape our own way and figure out how to do it the way we are comfortable to do it, and the way we're able to do it, with time and money and family support or lack of it. It's really a tricky business.
Yeah. And you're talking, so I'm really interested, and we'll get to the beginning of the book, because I also want to hear you read, but tell me a little bit more about writing and producing and mothering, and just now the intersection there, because Salma Hayek, as we know from the introduction, is turning this book into a show for HBO, right? So can you tell us anything about that?
Sure. I think the most surprising thing is because, the book has 2 chapters of 19 about breast cancer. So there's some kind of dark stuff, mainly because I want women to take care of yourself. Stress is totally related to getting sick. And it's a comedy series, and my breasts are going to talk. And so, they're going to be like my alter ego of, really, the judgment. So it's in development, and it's like, I used to think that the only thing that takes longer than making a baby is making a book, but I think TV shows even longer. And now with COVID, there's so many things in the funnel. So I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's very exciting. I mean, I actually talked on the phone with her, and she said she was obsessed with this book. And Salma Hayek is like this genius producer. You don't even know how many TV shows she has on, and in the Spanish language market, and movies like Frida, and TV shows like Ugly Betty. And she and Dolly Parton, they use their boobs for good. They know how to get the attention, and then they use that attention to be powerful women. And, Dolly, who helped with the Pfizer shot, I think it was, or Moderna, one of them. It's like these women, they know what they're doing. They know the weaknesses in our culture. They're going to use it. And so I cannot be more thrilled. It's very exciting. So whenever I see pictures of her showing boobs, I'm like, okay, I know what you're doing there.
That is amazing. Okay, wait, now we have to dig in a little bit to Boobs' power, because I love the way that you just framed that as they know what they're doing. They use the weaknesses of our culture to essentially put their boobs out there and then rule the world. So what are they doing? How does this work?
Well, if you look on Instagram, Salma has the most boobalicious Instagram you will ever see, right? And Dolly Parton, I don't know if she did it, but last year, I talk about it in the book because she has posed in Playboy before, and she wanted to do it again on a big birthday. Maybe it was the 70th birthday, something like that. And I think COVID changed plans because Playboy went off being a print, and it's online, and now people can see boobs online all the time. But she was very excited to show her body back in that bunny outfit that she did years ago when you had to do it, because she's proud of how her body looks. She definitely, has talked about her breasts being, large,
Yeah.
and it's part of with that tiny waist, it's really accentuated, and she knows that it's part of what makes her who she is. I mean, the wigs, the costumes, it's all part of the persona, and the same thing with Selma. It's like there are millions of people who follow these women. I mean, Dolly obviously is an incredible songwriter and musician. I mean, she wrote, some of her songs she wrote in like 30 minutes and she owns them. She's a really smart businesswoman. But then there's, Selma, who is producing all these things. She has her own production company, Vitana Rosa. She's, well married but works so hard. She's very smart, completely self-supporting, and works with these companies and has offices all over the world. And I heard from my producer who works with her producers. It's all one big happy family, I guess. And she said that there was some talk about, when they were starting to work on the pilot, and Salma, they got her on the phone. She actually insisted on getting on the phone in Dubai at 3 a.m. to give her opinion about some element of our project. It's like she is on it. So all the movies she does, she likes to act, obviously, and she's doing a lot of real serious stuff behind the scenes. So that's what I mean by power. And I think even, women who use their breasts to make more money, they're doing that too. They're, and women who hide them because I did, I wore big coats and didn't show that I was a girl because I was trying to do a man's job, and it didn't really help me make more money. But, then women, like in the Oscars or, award shows, they show their breasts and they're proud. And then I have some really funny scenes in the book of watching the Oscars with my mom on the other one. And it's tricky. It's is it empowering to show your body, or is it exploitative? Because then you get to Girls Gone Wild, and all those guys got sued for using drunken co-eds, versus Through the Nipple, where women are doing the same thing. And my question is, it's really taking your own power and being in charge of it and controlling how you present your body, because you're going to get viewers either way, and you're going to get judged. And so we just have to be much more powerful in our own right to kind of own it, how we want one of us to be. And as mothers, what are you going to teach your daughter? I mean, I was talking to, and it's in the book, I belong to this big leadership thing, and there was a woman who was a high exec in the Playboy thing. And I had a real long talk with her. She thought, oh, no, it's just a brand. This is a job. And then I found out she had a little girl. And I was like, so what are you going to do? And the answer was really interesting. But you have a lot of choices to make with your daughters. How are you going to make your daughter, how are you going to make her proud? How are you going to make her feel beautiful? And just the way the clothes she wears. And if she, how short can her shorts be? It's when is she going to want a bra? Are you going to, there's a lot of things that are involved. And I hope that all those mothers, all you mothers who have sons, are teaching them to go beyond the biological instinct to really appreciate the full woman, no matter what her bodies are. And yet it's a challenge because we live here. So God bless you all. Do what we can. We have to just really own it. And for me, awareness is the key. It's we can't change biology, but if we can be aware of how the culture treats us because of how we are as mothers, because of what we need to do as mothers, because of what they're making us do as mothers, and because of our breasts, which are the unicenter of so much,
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up. No, I was actually going to ask you that same question, because it's something my husband and I talk about a lot with a 5-year-old, and we don't have to do much about it yet, because she's still
she's just about to go into kindergarten. So
she's just going to kindergarten, exactly. Yeah. But I was very uncomfortable as a teen, and I, hid myself and was very much, my sister told me I dressed like a camp counselor, which always made me feel sort of, if she's listening, I still think about that. But how do you encourage a girl to both be confident and feel good about her body, but then also respectful of her body and aware of the perceptions of others, and yet not too concerned about what others think. So yeah, the balance there is something that I'm very aware of, having been like a 13-year-old daughter, and
Yeah. Well, I
that
think
I will have one at some point.
of course, let's hope. And I think that there's a lot that can be said for boundaries of both privacy and safety. And yet the subjective part goes, Laura, when you make a decision of when are you going to make your daughter cover her nipples in the bathing suit. So sometimes it's up to where you go, and sometimes it's up to, you know, how you feel about it and how comfortable she is, and if she starts getting publicly shamed or ridiculed, and how she handles that. I mean, there's, I think for me in the book, my favorite picture, and let's see if I can show this. Okay, the night that I decided to read the book, I had just moved, and I took a picture out of my box, my top box, my favorite picture, and I'll show you the picture. You can see this. Oh, let's see that picture on top.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's me. That's my sister right there, and that's my mom in the middle, and I'm the one on the other side. And when I look at that picture, I just automatically crack up, because the skinny little red strips were supposed to cover your nipple, and my sister, who was 1.5, could not do it. And I knew at 3 that it was like brushing your teeth. You had to cover your nipples. It was a rule. And I look at that picture and I think, oh, I wonder, I need a magnet. Is she covering her nipples? She's supposed to have her nipples covered. I mean, it cracks me up. And I remember looking at that picture that night and thinking, man, if that's how early I knew how nipples were taboo. I mean, it gives me goosebumps just thinking of how the culture has made me feel that way. And so I think that if we can just be, not shame our daughters and let them be free as long as they can until wherever they really want to go. If there's a rule there, then we have to abide by the rules, but try to encourage them to be proud of themselves. And yet there is a risk of, of not only valuing the privacy of their own body, which they own, and they should have agency over protecting as much as they want, in terms of consent. That will happen later. But also to protect themselves from prying eyes and people who are either dangerous or more judgmental. So it's tricky business for sure.
Yeah, and I love that you said essentially that it's, or maybe you didn't quite say this, but I interpreted it this way, that it's good to preempt the public shaming that could happen if you aren't sort of aware of the impact, right? So like, my sort of biggest concern is that my daughter might get old enough where someone is teasing her about her nipples or her need for a bra, and I haven't sort of preempted that need, and so then she is ridiculed and has to come to me and say, I'm being teased, I need to,
Well, you just, for me, the key is always keeping the line of communication open. Even as my daughters are older, it's like, even if they're going through something I don't approve of or I'm scared about, it's like the key is to keep the communication open so that when they need you, they can talk to you. And when they're little, same thing. You don't want to be harsh on them, and so that they're afraid to talk to you. And with little girls, you don't know who on the playground is going to tell them what first, right? And I remember how, boys would like snap your bra straps, or if you didn't have one, that was worse.
Exactly.
So yeah, 4th grade, and then you start developing, and you need to wear a t-shirt just so it's comfortable, but also so it doesn't show. And that's when, your parents' friends start treating you differently. And, it's a scary thing. So it's really all about communication and being close enough to your kids so you can talk whenever it comes up, or point things out as you see them. I don't think my kids always got scared. And I think even my husband, people get scared when you say, we have to talk, right? So if you're just kind of always having a conversation, as with little ones in your car, is a great way to talk, and oh, look at that, or lyrics to a song, or, in the picture book, because things still are a little wonky sometimes. So I think just being observant will help them be observant also. And I remember that movie, I think it was The Help, where the woman was telling the girl she had to take care of, you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are whatever it was, that mantra. I remember seeing that movie and thinking, man, I tried to be a good role model for my girls. I've tried to teach them everything, and yet peer pressure is huge. Their own emotional, mental health and physical, everything is different. And so you don't have control of all that. But I kept thinking, if only I had this mantra I had told them. What could I say to always know you are beautiful? You are, and I think my sisters, her daughter's a little younger than mine. We're just a family of women. And they're very confident in their bodies, and nobody necessarily looks like, the Vogue models. They're really proud of who they are all the time. And I think that is something that women, mothers and fathers, can do, not in a sexual way, but just like, hey, you're beautiful. Hey, beautiful. How you doing? And unfortunately, beauty is, I wish you didn't have to say you're beautiful. Could you say you're really smart? But obviously smart is a huge value, and in our culture, so is beauty. The beauty inside and out, it's not a cliche. It's something that we need to work to enforce, because it affects everything. It affects how we're treated in the workplace. It affects our opportunities, our pay. It really is part of our culture, and it's part of every culture. But in America, the Hollywood, we affect everyone. So it's especially important here.
Yeah. Tell me about your daughters, and what have they read your books? Oh, I just noticed your mug. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's on the back. Hey, move my lipstick. It says, "Love you, boobs." That's kind of my.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Are those for sale somewhere?
Well, they are not for sale, but I could certainly send you one. And if you have someone who calls in and would like one, you can pick someone, and I'll send one out as a gift. When the book's been out a couple months, and I was doing a lot of book clubs, and it was a prize and stuff. But I'd be happy to send you one, and to also send a listener who's interested. You can ask a question and see who wins, or however you want to do that.
Yeah, let's do that. I've got some swag. I'll send you some swag in return. Okay. We'll do a listener giveaway.
Okay, good. You're asking if my daughter's going to read the book. There are some things in the book, like, for instance, one of my daughters was really keen on getting a boob job for a while. She had been an all-star athlete and got really injured, and then her whole identity was changed. And then I have another daughter who I was dropping off at college, and I was like, do you need a new bra? And we were talking about, she loved Game of Thrones, and the first 2 seasons, it was all the women in the background, having sex while someone would talk, and they started calling it sexploitation or sexposition, because exposition is information, and they would just and I always think, wow, if my kids were actresses, which they're not, and I still do this, you see someone on TV and the girl's topless earlier, I'm always thinking, look, I'm my mom on TV. It's like, is it worth it? Is that okay? Does it not matter? But so I definitely ran certain things by them. And also in the book later on, for example, their dad died by suicide a couple years ago. So there are some it's just happened like while I was writing the last chapter. And yet I realized that there's also some stuff about domestic abuse and things our breasts, being women get us into by how our bodies are seen. And so I realized it kind of was related in a way of how women and men's roles are. And he had been a vet and all this stuff. But it's just this tiny little piece, but I had to mention it because it dovetailed into the last chapter. And so I ran that by my older daughter, who is much more, they're both readers, but she's actually a copywriter at Adobe. So she's like into words. She figured out how to do it. And I ran certain parts by her. My other daughter, I think, was avoiding it a little bit. This is my 7th book, and my kids are like, refuse to let me read anything they wrote. You know how people always say, oh, they're helicopter parents, they're doing your homework. Well, my kids, because I'm a writer, I think maybe they were afraid of my judgment. And also as a single mom for a while, I think they didn't want me to be editing their stuff or have any opinion. So they're very wary. Also, my first book, a baby dies, and my older daughter thinks I killed her. So she doesn't want to read any of my books. The next book was a comedy, and this one definitely has both. But I'm pretty sure she's read it because she'll say something, but she wouldn't come right out and say, oh gosh, I loved your book. She's totally happy for me. Her friends and work associates are excited and thrilled and recommending the book all the time, but she kind of plays it, on the down low. And my other one too, it's like, actually my other one, while I was writing it, I told her, I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this, and do you want to change your name? And she said yes. So one of them has a fake name, And, I have to respect their privacy. Well, I think, as you know, writing, Laura, it's even in writing a memoir, it's like if your life is a house, a memoir is one room in your house. We just happen to be in my closet, in my lingerie bag. This is about my boobs. And for me, boobs really covered a lot of my life, but they don't necessarily go into other family members' lives in any way that doesn't relate to women's roles and women's history or feminism or breastfeeding. Anything that relates to breasts, I will talk to them about it. But otherwise, it's just this is the story I needed to write because it's not out there. Nobody talks about this. It's like Vogue can say, "Oh, boobs are in this year," or "They're out," and it's like they're on our bodies. So how can they be a fashion accessory? So I honestly couldn't tell you 100% that both of them have read it, but I sure wrote it hoping they would. So.
Well, speaking of reading it, I'm going to try to solo you on the screen, which I haven't been able to do yet. That's why I need a producer here, so if you know somebody. So I'm going to try to solo you, and I'd love to hear a little bit of the book.
Okay, I'm just going to read the pages. I'm just going to read the very top of the book, which is exactly how it happened, and this is why it was so crazy.
Please do.
Yeah, it starts in 2015, and the first chapter is called Obsession. My nipples are cross-eyed. I see it clearly in the bathroom mirror the moment I step out of the shower. As steam clouds the view, I wave my towel and pray it was an optical illusion. No, they're definitely pointing in different directions, as if embarrassed to meet my eyes. Or maybe this is payback. The truth is, my breasts have been loathed and loved, suckled and stuffed, radiated and reconstructed. They have doomed one marriage and inspired another. Yet every step of the way, they've had the finest treatment in America. By now, they should be perfect. Hun, my husband John calls from the bedroom, what's taking so long? Since we married a few years ago, both of his parents passed away, and then I got cancer. This is the first home we bought together, a condo with an ocean view we'll enjoy for a few years as a reward for all we've been through. The 99-step climb is like a stairway to heaven, but I didn't have to die to get here. This is our first night to relax and renew our romance. I try. First, I dab perfume behind my ears and unclip my damp chemo curls. Then I take a deep breath and look again. If I raise up my right shoulder and arch my back just so, my breasts are lush and round and almost even. But there's no ignoring the truth. I pull a cotton nightgown over my head as fast as I can. Then I shove my towel so hard into the plastic hamper that the piece of crap falls over. My husband tears his eyes from the TV as I stomp into the bedroom. You okay? I snatch my phone from the cardboard moving box by the bed. I have to call my doctor. Now, he asks, over the swell of applause for the late show. Are you in pain? Yes, I want to say, psychic pain. Then I realize the doctor's answering service won't consider that an emergency. When I shake my head, my husband smiles and pats the bed beside him. I surrender the phone and scooch over. He rubs my leg and glances back at the TV, where the host is mid-monologue. I start to relax. Then the host, David Letterman, tells a boob joke about J-Lo. The TV audience roars. I turn to my husband, to his credit is not laughing. This guy gets paid millions of dollars. It's the end of his reign on television, and that's the best he can do. J-Lo is the producer of a successful TV show. He shrugs. Comedians have always made boob jokes. Exactly, I said. It's not original. Why are they laughing? There's a neon sign that flashes the word laugh. No, they're really laughing. I bet half the people in that audience are women, and they're laughing too. Boob jokes are funny. But why, I ask? Every woman in the world has boobs. That's why, he says. They're the first female body part a man sees when a woman walks into a room. The laughter dies down. The comedian is talking, but I don't care. I hate him. What makes a boob funny? Boobs just sit there, all round and funny looking. Dicks just sit there too, I say, and they're far more funny looking. Why aren't there more dick jokes? Dick jokes are insulting. All jokes are insulting. They make fun of something. Isn't that how humor works? Isn't that how the word sounds? I mean, no one says breast jokes. Breasts are beautiful. Everyone knows that. When you call them boobs, it's funny. But boob means stupid. How can the organ that turns blood into milk for babies be stupid? Lighten up, hun. He winces as if I've been shouting. I just don't understand why people always laugh at boob jokes. They're not funny. Why are you being so sensitive, he asks. I don't answer, on the grounds that it might incriminate me. I remove his hand from my thigh. He raises his eyebrows. I take a deep breath and try to let it go. But I feel like punching somebody, and he's the only one here. So much for romance. So that's the beginning of the book. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
That was quite a night.
Why did you start there? Not in the reading, but in the book.
Because that's really how it started. I mean, I was up the rest of the night going, is this just me? Am I crazy? He accused me of being obsessed. And I thought, I'm a feminist. I'm not obsessed. I just have boobs, you know? And I went in the other room. I had my computer set up at all the boxes. And I started Googling, is there a book on this? Is there somebody, can I ask somebody? And I Googled breasts and I found breastfeeding and breast cancer and a whole lot of chicken recipes. And yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'll Google boobs, and it was all porn. And nobody had really connected the two, you know? So I thought, okay, I got to find this out. Partly, as I said, because I wanted to know, am I going to fix my boobs again? I had been through so much, you know, with breast cancer. I finally thought I was whole and sexy again. And then to get out of the shower and have them like, they weren't quite right. So it was really for my own self. And I had to write the book. So that's how it started.
And it is a fabulous and very necessary book.
Thank you.
Yes. And anyone who is listening later to the podcast, please take a look. We'll put the cover of the book on Instagram. We'll put the picture, if Leslie will share it with us, of herself in the bathing suit, that picture from the book on Instagram, so you can see, and the mug that we'll do a giveaway of.
Right.
So, yeah, or you can just watch the episode and see it all.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It was just, I just had to write it. And it was the kind of thing where at first, as a writer, as you know, sometimes you don't know why you're writing something. But it's just one of those things for me. I'm not a person who writes a book every year. Books take a long time. And I just really had to write this book. And so hopefully, and now it's obviously getting a lot of good. I mean, it filled a need and it's entertaining, and I'm really excited about it. So Thank you so much for inviting me on to talk about it. And I'm excited. I've been listening to your other podcasts. It's been fabulous. You're doing a service. I do want to ask you one question, though.
Yeah.
Why monster?
Why monster?
Huh?
Well, because I think there's so many elements of womanhood and motherhood that are considered monstrous, right?
Is it a scary thing or is it a powerful thing?
Oh, totally powerful.
Okay.
I think taking the scary things or the shameful things or the monstrous things and turning them into empowering things, right? Like, what's more monstrous than turning blood into milk in an organ of your body, right? Like, that's sort of like a Frankensteinian, whatever, situation. So I think it's just that type of shift in thinking that I intend with the monster part of Writer Mother Monster.
I love it.
Yeah, let's embrace the monstrous.
Let's.
And the boobs.
Thank you so much. It's been just a really...
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. It's been a pleasure. Stick around for a second so I can say goodbye after we come off the air. But thank you again for joining us. And I can't wait. Keep us updated, too, on the show so we can watch your boobs have a conversation. Bye. And thank you all so much for joining us as well. This has been really fun. And if you have enjoyed the conversation as much as I have, and I really have, please consider becoming a patron or patroness of Writer Mother Monster. You can find the information on the website, www.writermothermonster.com. And we will follow up also on that giveaway. And we also have plenty of Writer Mother Monster stuff that I can give away online as well. So more to come on that. Thank you again, and I'll see you next week.